Yeah, super official, the pounding of the mallet. Okay, so we're going to call the Budget Committee meeting for the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Coos Bay to order. And the first item on the agenda is welcome and introductions. And I think maybe starting with online folks might be handy. So I'm going to call you out, and then if you want to come on and introduce yourself. We've got a couple Budget Committee members online and then also a staff member. So, Rick?
Hi, I'm Rick Rayfeld, one of the citizen members of the committee.
Allie?
Hi, Allie McGinn, also a citizen member of the committee.
And Chief Chapnar. He might be on his phone, so that's maybe a little more challenging. So he does have folks here to represent. So we'll move on. Oh,
I'm Chris Chapnar, I'm Chief of Police. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, how about we start there at the end?
Yeah, Jason Wortnick, Budget Committee member.
McKinley Prado, Budget Committee member.
Brenda Brecky, Budget Committee member.
Ken Folker, Budget Committee.
Troy Cribbins, City Councilor.
Lucinda DeNovo, City Councilor.
Joe Benetti, Mayor.
I forgot. For a second. Stephanie Kilmer, City Councilor. Sarah Stevens, City Councilor.
Jacob Niebuhr, City Councilor. Carmen Matthews, City Council.
Nicole Rutherford, City Manager.
Brianna Weigel, Finance Director.
Okay, now that we've fixed technology, Sarah Pearson, Library Director.
Risha Latta, Water Quality Superintendent.
Greg Hamblett, Operations Administrator.
Kelly Eichelberger, Planning Administrator.
Jeff Adkins, Fire Chief.
Tessa Cup, Communications Administrator.
Tom Lindahl, Police Captain.
In the back of the room, Christine, who does all things. So if you're wondering how it's her. And then we have a couple of observers from finance here, just to kind of learn the process that always helps to grow a little bit. So Megan and Madison from the finance department. And then we've got some folks. Marcy will step up and have a section in the budget, and Chelsea's the community development director. Jared's in engineering. I don't know who else in there, but and then we have some folks here just as part of the public. So I think that gets us through welcome and introductions, which brings us to election of officers. So I can pass the gavel. So we are looking for tonight election of a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary.
I would make a motion that we have Councilor Sarah Stevens as chair.
Second.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I'd accept a motion for a vice chair.
I'll make a motion to nominate Councilor Kilmer for Vice Chair.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And a nomination for a secretary.
I'll make a motion to nominate Councilor Cribbins as Secretary.
And a second.
Second.
Thanks, Carmen. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, moving into public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay, moving into the presentation of the budget message by a budget officer. Nicole.
Yes, thank you. So we'll put a short presentation up there. Historically, we've done a Budget 101 presentation, but I think everybody in this room has been through that like a bazillion times, and happy to do a refresh if there's something we don't remember, but it's a pretty basic kind of process. We really just want to get folks from the community involved. We come here and talk about it at this meeting for the budget committee. You guys, your job is to adopt the budget or approve the budget, and it goes to the full council or the Urban Renewal Agency for approval. There's publications and all the things to make sure we're doing that in front of everybody. So that's essentially what the 101 said. So Urban Renewal Agency is what we start with here tonight, and I have this magic thing, so I will hit. You're still going. Okay. I could have done more Budget 101, I guess. And just like kind of maybe a little bit of a reminder, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes into putting what you have in front of you together today. And the folks that are here from the team are the ones who do the bulk of that work. So it is definitely, you're going to see throughout tonight and into next week, it is a labor of love because they are working with next to nothing to stretch it as far as possible to make sure we are covering services that this community has shown that they want and need. Okay, maybe we're good. I'm not sure where I'm pointing it, so straight. Okay, so just a reminder about urban renewal. The intent of urban renewal is to basically address blight conditions within communities. Those can be either poorly developed or underdeveloped, kind of left to their own condition without a lot of attention. Without, and I think we've experienced this, without urban renewal as a tool in our community, we wouldn't have seen some changes. For example, Coos Bay Village is one of the significant ones, right? We had a old mill site that sat vacant for decades and went into a brownfield situation. So that is a perfect example of what urban renewal can do. And then just kind of a reminder on how urban renewal works in regards to how we get the revenue in. Essentially, when you start an urban renewal area, you establish the baseline property values, and then from that point forward, all of the tax increment, the increased taxes, go to the Urban Renewal Agency. And so what that really does is give kind of buy-in from all of the area entities, kind of putting all, willing and agreeing to putting all the money in one bucket to see something shift in a community. And then once the agency has ran its course, those increased tax revenues get distributed back out to those overlapping taxing districts. That just is also a good reminder that the taxes on your property tax bill today would be the taxes on your property tax bill when urban renewal closes. It will be just distributed differently. So there's no new taxes added to anyone's bill because of urban renewal. So in the city of Coos Bay, the Urban Renewal Agency established two districts, the Downtown District and the Empire District. And your budget represents those two districts and the three funds that it takes to manage the activity. There's a special revenue fund in which all of the property taxes come into. It is just literally tax revenue in and a transfer to the bond fund to make bond payments. As a reminder, urban renewal revenues are used to repay debt. So we either go out and get large debt from a financial institution, or we can do what is called du jour financing. That is really just short-term kind of financing, which allows us to borrow money for 3 days or less from the city in order to have a debt to repay. So the bond fund handles all of those transactions. And then the capital fund is where you see all of the real work happen. That's where all of our projects sit out. Both the downtown and the Empire District have that same structure of funds. The plans that were established for both of those districts include the elements that fit within both Empire and downtown, and they're very particular to those areas. But generally speaking, projects that are eligible for urban renewal tax usage is for property acquisition or disposition. You can use it if you need to, for example, purchase a property where there are tenants in it and you intend to put it back into a different use, or even rehab. You can relocate those occupants. Public improvements, which we have seen that's a Coos Bay Village, the rail crossing there. Site improvements, which can be public buildings, parks, and facilities, parking facilities, and then private property capital improvements, and we see that having been put in place through our building improvement program, or what we used to refer to as the facade program. Within our both districts, we use the various types of operational expenses, which is administration, planning, legal, and financial services. Those are kind of the global services that our team helps to provide to the Urban Renewal Agency, who does not have its own employees. And this is just a kind of a reminder of how how urban renewal funds can be used, which are to pay debt, and we already talked about, because I got ahead of myself. We could either be long-term through financial institutions or through the de jure program. The de jure program actually requires us to come to council. We do formal documents, just like if you were going to go to a bank for that. And that happens generally February-ish of the year, each year. So in your budget, this is still debt. So there are two outstanding debt issuances from the downtown district, one from fiscal year 19 and one from fiscal 20. The first one, which the agency refinanced in 2021 for a savings of over $400,000 and a shorter maturity time period. That was used to purchase a property down on Front Street. It was also used to support the traffic signal and rail crossing at Coos Bay Village and some improvements on Front Street, and do some streetscapes throughout the downtown area. And then the second issuance was for the improvements at 4th Street, which were essentially from commercial through, I always forget the road that's over by the fire department. No, it didn't go all the way to Elrod. We had that weird question of why we left the hanging a bit of the block. So almost down to the fire department there. And then the Empire District also has two outstanding debt issuances, one from fiscal 18 and one from fiscal 19. The first one purchased some property on Ocean Boulevard, and the second one was used to rebuild the Newmark Avenue seawall. And then the second issuance was to do some pretty significant road improvements in the Empire area. What you have proposed for you tonight in the downtown district, just a quick overview of that, very similar to what we've had over the last few years. We've got some money to help support continued work with the Front Street Blueprint, some street improvements and sidewalk improvements. We try to continue to do that within those districts. Same, a couple of years ago, we talked about parking lot improvements in the downtown district because those are significant in our core on 101. Boardwalk improvements still continue. You'll see some have happened in this year itself. We'll continue that effort. We still want to acknowledge there might be opportunity for building acquisition and redevelopment. We do have some buildings in the downtown core that might apply to. We want to make sure our improvement program is still available for private property owners who want to take the time to improve their buildings. We do have a small amount in there for City Hall upgrades, which is likely not going to get us where we'd like to go. Specifically, our HVAC system needs some attention, if not full replacement. It's really crucial for our server room to maintain the right temperature And then we have to acknowledge that the server room is crucial to our level of service delivery for the dispatch center. So definitely looking for opportunities to help fund that. But and then, as usual, we usually have a bucket of undetermined capital projects, and so that you'll see that in the downtown district this year too. And then in Empire, again, street improvements. We will continue the work on the parking lot at Newmark and Wall. We have an Empire blueprint that we'd hope to launch some projects out there in relation to getting that out on the streets. Again, want to support building owners in the Empire District with the improvement program. Looking at opportunities there for building acquisition and redevelopment. And then our bucket of undetermined funds is also in the Empire District. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me, can you go back?
Yeah.
Thanks. Can you tell me what the Empire Blueprint project is? I don't remember that.
So it's a project we completed, I think it was a couple of years ago. It took a little bit of time, community kind of driven revisioning of the Empire area. It took, gosh, I can't remember, Chelsea, maybe 18 months or so to work through that with some communities. Very much similar to what we have with the Front Street Blueprint, right? We have an idea of how we could improve that area and kind of gives us that's like our guidebook. So, special levy. So, because things can never be just simple. In 97 and 98, there was a piece of legislation under Measure 50 that allowed urban renewal districts to impose a special levy if they were not fully collecting all available tax increment through their regular tax. And so we are an agency that has that availability. We have consistently used that since I have been at the city, and consistently also chosen to levy at 28% of the available. It's kind of a fine line. Any more than that, we would push us all into compression, and which means all districts lose a little bit. So we're kind of at that fine line where, for example, the city compression is around $25,000 to $30,000 a year. So we don't really want to tip that balance anymore. And that's just kind of that further discussion on special levy. That brings in roughly about $600,000, and that has historically been used towards either street improvement or repayment of street improvement debt. And that gets us to the end of the overview.
Nicole, can you give us some examples of, you mentioned the other districts. Could you give us some examples of that so we all understand what those districts are?
Yeah, so the city's one, right? We forego some of those taxes. We're first. We're the highest one who gives up the most. Then we land into the school district. The college is one. The ESD is another. Then it gets like Coos County, and then it gets small, like 4-H and the library districts, and they just get smaller and smaller. The schools, I think they're around 600,000 or so that they forego, but just as a reminder, urban renewal, especially around school districts, the way the state school fund works, if we didn't have that urban renewal in the school district, didn't get to record those revenues, basically the state comes in and fills the gap for the schools. This came out state school fund so that we made sure all schools across the state of Oregon were funded equally, and we didn't have urbanized schools getting more dollars than maybe rural schools did. So they calculate what you get locally, and then they fill your gap based on what you need from the state to meet their per pupil costs. So.
Yeah, I wanted everyone to be reminded, so thank you.
Yeah. And that's also like we have to do an annual report. Urban renewal agencies have to do an annual report, which is issued out. We make a publication, all that. We have a table in that report that talks about the overlapping taxing districts and what they forego by each district, the downtown and the Empire District.
So the schools would not receive any more money if the urban renewal agency wasn't there.
Correct.
They receive the same amount.
Yep.
And second of all, the urban renewal agency does not cost the taxpayers any more money, even though it looks that way on the tax bill.
Correct.
All right.
If urban renewal went away, that bucket of urban renewal would get split out amongst all of the other taxing districts. So your property tax bill would remain the same. It just, the division of taxes would change.
So an example, you mentioned Coos Bay Village, and that ended up being a $26 million investment or project for them. So what does that generate for us in taxes? Any idea?
Gosh, that's a great question. I've looked at a few of the buildings. I haven't looked at the total project as it was fully completed now, but the few of buildings that I looked at are $25,000 annually for property taxes, and those are just like the sections of the buildings, and there are 12 or 14 there. So it's a significant investment, especially when you consider over the life when we're wanting to contemplate supporting a project and what is our return on investment. That one was a huge bump for us.
So those funds, urban renewal funds generated by the Coos Bay Village, is helping us pay that loan.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Okay, thanks.
In a way, would you basically say that we're getting almost a tax or a fiscal benefit by having the urban renewal because the state fills in that gap for the schools that they would not do that if we weren't collecting those funds and using them elsewhere?
Yeah, essentially, if you're just going to look from the school perspective, which I think is really important when we think about what we have here versus what we could bring in. If the bucket for the schools was filled entirely, they wouldn't have a big need from the state. So we'd be using our local dollars versus what should come from the state of Oregon to help support our local schools. So now where we're sharing urban renewal, that's a benefit of it, right? We're bringing in outside dollars. But the bigger picture is, at least in my opinion, is we are coming together as a community to help build us better. And that takes all of those dollars together. We all have this belief that this organization can guide those dollars in a way that gives us some improvements that we see that return on investment with all of the dollars. So yeah, we couldn't, with just the city's dollars, we would not be able to do that work. It takes us all together to do that.
Great. Okay, moving on to the review of the proposed URA budget. I see that some people are using their computers and some have a printout. I think the numbers are aligned this year, so that's cool. The first, if there's any questions on the first couple of pages, please ask, but Nicole went over much of this. So if there are no questions, we will start on page 7. Which, again, Nicole explained much of this. So just as a reminder, we're going to go through this. Please, everyone ask questions along the way. If there's anything we want to redline, we'll do that and then come back to it at the end. Nicole, anything you want to say about that you didn't mention about the bond and coupon redemption?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe one thing I would say is just like expiration of these, right? When do they mature? These were all 10-year loans. So for the downtown district, we are looking at a maturity of, I wrote it down, 2030. So, we've still got a few more years there. But in the Empire area, those ones will mature in fiscal 28 and one in fiscal 29. So we're just about to get those cleared out. It might be time to, reconsider another larger kind of effort out there, especially with the blueprints completed. So,
great, thanks. Moving into page 9, the summary of resources. $14,691, $500. Any questions on or comments on page 9? Team did a good job matching resources and expenditures. Thanks.
I think that's what a balanced budget's supposed to be.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, moving to page 11, Downtown Special Revenue Fund. You can see some slight changes with current property taxes. I'm just going to keep rolling unless anybody has any comments. And moving into the Empire Special Revenue Fund on page 12. And then Fund 54, the Downtown Bond Fund. Note the reserved for future expenditure section on both Downtown and Empire, page 13 and 14. And then on page 16, we get into the fun part, how we're going to spend the money. So we're going to start with page 16, Downtown Capital Projects Funds. Nicole, can you let us know what is included in the contractual line?
Yeah, absolutely. So in whoops, sorry. In that line item and across all funds, just for the rest of both the urban renewal and the city, contractual for us is something that we have an obligation to. We've signed something. It's generally greater than a short period, a year or more. So in this instance, we're talking about our commitment to the Downtown Association, and we also have some landscaping that we have in the downtown area that are really significant core kind of spaces, which are our north and south entry points and the recent public parking lot work that we've done, which we've done some nice landscaping in there. We want to keep those up to date. So,
Sarah, I have a question about 57940-530, or the last four digits probably are 3154 for the boardwalk upgrades. Mm-hmm. Nicole, can you give us a bit more detail of what those are?
I can. Actually, I might ask Greg if we have what's our list look like?
Thank you. So we do have some proposed work that's going to take place down at the boardwalk. We would like to, again, focus our efforts on re-roofing the pavilions. We have a lot of work happening down there now, a lot of upgrades. The Urban Renewal Agency has funded those projects. So we have the re-roofing. We have a few other projects that we'd like to do, perhaps doing some more trail maintenance down there, repaving some of those sections that just kind of getting old, need some help.
Okay, thank you. And then, oh, sorry, go ahead, Brenda, sure.
What about the replacement of those wooden seating kind of things that are along the side of the path? They're totally rotting now.
So actually, is this still on? Yeah, it is. So a couple, last year, 2 years ago, we replaced several of the bulwarks, is what they're called. We replaced several of those. So we do have plans to replace the remaining few that do need to be repaired or replaced, but it's going to come at kind of a minimal fund or minimal cost to replace those and paint those. So. Yeah. The picnic tables, we did actually make a purchase on Gov Deals to purchase several used picnic tables at a very discounted rate, and we're just rehabbing those. So that was a good use of funds. And then also we're going to make them nice and put them out there and take the ones that are over there now, take them back and refurbish those and repurpose those at other locations.
So Greg, the description I hear you providing is about upgrades, not necessarily ongoing maintenance, correct?
Correct.
Thanks.
And then my last question is item 3153, wayfinding signs. I think there was a reference to that in our last city council meeting. I just want to acknowledge we are not spending any money on wayfinding signs that might fall into the ocean. Is that correct?
That is correct. And just as a reminder, so we remember how we're reading this document right, these line items exist until they have no more historical data. So, we'll have in next year's budget, unless there is a plan for something to happen, we won't present wayfinding signs any longer.
Thank you.
Fall off. Fall off, not in the same way, maybe.
And Nicole, you mentioned this in your presentation, but the City Hall upgrades are support for the HVAC system.
Yeah, currently, the list is long, just like it is for almost, most of our facilities. We could definitely use, we continue to have some challenges in this space. The carpeting in through the hallway could use some attention, so again, Greg has a list longer than we can usually find funds for, but we're watching all of those things for sure.
So Sarah, I have a question. So Nicole, you have the Coos Art Museum in here, and I know there's no funding for it, but we own that building, am I correct?
We do.
But isn't the museum supposed to be purchasing it from us, or not purchasing it? Aren't we going to transfer ownership to them?
So we are working through what that looks like. Both of our legal representatives are talking about that. We've been having that conversation for a bit of time, trying to figure out what that transition looks like. Because not only would you be taking over, that building, we also, you'll find in our city budget, we provide some operational costs for them. So we want to make sure that if we hand it over, it's a significant asset for our community. We want to make sure it stays, functioning, open, and all those things. So yes, we're working on it as fast as we can.
But we don't have a time frame.
Don't have a time frame yet. Can certainly check on that.
Okay.
It's with legal, so sometimes their communications take a little bit longer.
And then, any questions on the capital? Any other questions on the capital outlay before we move to the reclassification of the brownfields funding?
Could you maybe just explain what agency management is real quick, just so we're clear on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's also a good thing to kind of remind us of each year. The agency itself does not have staff, and so that is essentially the cost of staff to manage all of the projects and the programs that are out there, along with any kind of adjacent costs, for example, in this instance, budget publications. All of those things we run through. You'll see when we get into the city budget, there's an urban renewal administration division, and everything runs through there, and then that total at the bottom is what gets split between downtown and Empire as an agency management fee. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's not. I thought it was. Under the building acquisition redevelopment, that went down significantly this year. And there's so much blight in downtown Coos Bay. I hate to see that line item go down.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? With all, you're going to see that across the board. The bucket is only a certain size, and we're trying to figure out how we can accommodate as much of all the little buckets in between. But I think that's up for discussion, right? What is this agency value? Where do you want to put those dollars at? This is what we're proposing, but it doesn't mean it can't be moved around.
Can you tell us what's going on Anderson? That Anderson, the block of downtown is so sad.
Yeah, there's a couple of properties that are a little bit challenged on Anderson. The one that's on the corner of Anderson and 101 is what we know as the Fletcher building. Hopefully some of you have that reference point. It suffered a fire several years ago, and it has been in kind of insurance claim purgatory for a bit, trying to really, both parties kind of arguing that out a bit. We have been in contact with the owner, and we are encouraging him to, maybe do some interim solutions while the building doesn't look in great shape, waiting for that claim kind of to be settled. Further down, we actually walked again, we're going to have an old reference here, the Lemon Tree Bakery. Does anybody remember that? Also, probably a couple years ago, we walked an abatement process with that building because there was folks living in that building in non-residential spaces, not really very safe, and the roof was leaking, impacting the adjoining buildings. A lot of our buildings in the downtown have shared walls. And so we walked that process, but there are some significant liens on that building, so it makes it a little bit challenging for the agency to kind of take on that, to be able to see a return on investment there. So we're also, the council is considering a couple of options we'll be bringing to them in the next couple of months in order to deal with blight and vacant properties. We've some great examples across the state.
Yeah, but just follow up, Brenda. We don't do a lot of acquisition. At least this council has never supported that. More improvement grants or improvement of a building and participation type thing. Because if you end up with a building, and we're in a spot. That one that there's $400,000 in back taxes and liens, and for us to acquire that, and we looked into it, started that process. There's no way to even make it work and pencil out. So. But we're looking more, I think improvement grants are the way that we have been usually going to try to help things. So.
Well, and we can see that no one actually accessed that money this year.
That's true, but it's like wildfire lately. We've got probably 4 or 5 interested parties in with either pre-ops or conversations happening internally for improvement grants. So whether or not they make it in this year or they come into next year, we'll see. But.
Nicole, isn't there an ordinance coming before us? You had mentioned several things will be coming before us to address this, but I believe we have an ordinance coming before us that talks about fining these buildings for the blight that we see. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's just kind of, put a little more language to it. With what we would bring forward would have some fines attached to them to deal with both vacant buildings. So we want them to register so we can have an awareness. The ones, even homes, we want to know what's out there in the community. So both vacant and blighted. That's what we'll be bringing forth, so that the council, and that's kind of driven by their interest. Having some examples in the state that they've located, and then staff's kind of dived in a little bit deeper to get kind of round out those examples so we can bring something forth.
Okay, before we move to the reclassification of the Brownfield Front Street, any other comments or questions? Yeah, Jason.
I got one more, and I think we kind of hit on this last year, but it relates to what was budgeted last year and what the outlay has been so far year to date. And it just looks like we haven't spent near what we budgeted last year. And I am assuming that it relates to you've got to formulate a plan in order to spend the money. And we've got the money in the budget to spend, but it just looks like we're not spending it. So I'm wondering, what do we need to do so we can, achieve our goals?
Yeah, so we actually have a few projects that are going out. We have some street projects that are going to go out, in spring. That's the other challenge is the timing has to be right for construction. So we have those. You should see some coming through. Now, the boardwalk upgrades that we've been doing are happening as we speak. So when we're looking at this through 331, we've got a few more months this year. We'll see some more expenses there. And though we didn't spend it this year, it rolls into next year. So trying to estimate what we're going to start with is a little bit challenging this time of year. But if it's variance from what we've budgeted, what we're prepared to have us carry over, we, of course, we clear that up once the year closes out, bringing back a supplemental budget. So there are some things we expect that will be occurring over the next, now 2 months. Yeah.
Okay, going back up to contractual, I know we've got some folks here from the Downtown Association, and I want to thank you for your presentation on Tuesday. And I also just want to stress that I'm really hopeful that some of the things that you presented on Tuesday come to fruition, because I'm going to have a hard time approving this in the future if we don't see some changes. Okay, Nicole, can you talk about the reclassification of the Brownfields Front Street?
Yeah, this is an interesting one and kind of a little bit of legacy cleanup. So you guys may remember, you've seen the end result, but we had a parking lot on Front Street that initially started kind of as a brownfields project in the Urban Renewal Agency. And we worked through that and then moved into construction phase. And at that time, again, giving you some history here that you probably remember, so I hate to repeat, but at that time, our water quality team was accessing a large loan for one of our plants, and DEQ offered for us to have a smaller loan, which in taking that would reduce our large loan so that essentially the small loan would have no interest, it would be like interest-free loan. So we use those funds to construct that parking lot. And in reconciliation this year for the budget, we recognized that those funds had come back into the Urban Renewal Agency, and they're really tied to that water quality loan. So we want to put that, tracing funds, make sure that it goes where it should be, put that back into the system that really is paying, for that, so that they have that for improvements. So the challenge is these are two, the agency and the city are two entities. We can't do a transfer like a normal interfund transfer. We need to treat it kind of like a payment too. So that's what was our intention here. I'm just trying to call it out with enough information by the line item so we'd be able to, in several years kind of identify what happened there. What are we doing? Because it's outside of the ordinary.
Any questions on that?
Nicole, before I got on this council, I did not know what Brownsfield was, and essentially that's a contaminated site that probably no one would want to purchase because the cost of fixing it is really high. So if I remember correctly, we as a city purchased that property, which was good for the owner and good for the community because we were able to pay for a parking lot, and that location is no longer a Brownsfield site. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great.
Yeah. And,
Thanks.
the other thing that's great about that opportunity there is the proximity to our waterway, right? So resolving that issue before we had concerns entering into the bay. So, yeah, definitely a great project to partner on.
So for clarification, because this has come up in the public, did that parking lot cost the taxpayers any money?
So,
because we reduced the interest, right, to pay for the parking lot.
Correct.
So basically, it's a wash for the taxpayers. There was
Correct.
no out-of-pocket taxes to pay for it.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah. Urban renewal started, but those were taxes that would have happened anyway. So if that's the tie that people might wrap their head around, yeah.
But we got the interest lowered to go ahead and pay for that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, the interest would have stayed there. But with DEQ, gives us this ability to do that, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Anything else on the Downtown Capital Projects Fund? Okay, moving to Empire Capital Projects Fund. Again, Nicole, can you let us know what the contractual is within the Empire Capital Projects Fund?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I didn't pull that one. Let me look it up real quick.
While she's pulling that, does anyone have other questions about the expenditures within the Empire Capital Project Fund, page 18?
Yeah, I have a question about the capital outlay for the Empire street improvement projects. Could you explain what that is in more detail?
So those, let's go back a little bit and understand how we address street improvements in the city of Coos Bay. We have I'm going to probably say this wrong, so I apologize. But we have an indexing system that we use to kind of grade our streets, the status they are currently at, and that helps us line them out on when we should be addressing their improvement. So while we have this in here, and we know that, right, infrastructure, quality infrastructure is a piece of economic development, we want to make sure we're continuing to do that. I don't know that we have a specific, I mean, we probably do on our list have a specific street or streets we're going to be working on, but that is what that is for, is to address whichever streets at the top of the list that's within the urban renewal district.
Great. That addresses my question, and I'll finish with, tell me what we're doing with the $100,000 for the Empire Blueprint plan this year.
Yeah, that's a great question, too. We actually have had some communications with the Community Coalition of Empire. They've met with some staff members. I think Mayor Benetti met with them. I've talked with them. And they have some ideas on how they might help us move that along a little bit. So, you know, kind of going back to the grassroots idea, how does that community maybe want to see it get built out? I don't know that we have any picked projects yet. Obviously, the parking lot is a piece of what that could look like, too, which we'll be working on, but it is not in relation to the blueprint. We will pick projects within there.
And you mean the parking lot next to Tokyo Bistro, is that correct?
Yes, the New Market Wall. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I think for me, I'm disappointed to see us moving forward on a parking lot before we're moving forward on multimodal transport in Empire. Like, that plan clearly outlines a plan for that, and I think we, as a city, have invested in parking lots for many years, and I am disappointed.
I would share that sentiment.
Wasn't that property gifted, though, and cleaned up for that purpose?
Sure, but we also invested a bunch of money and time in an Empire Blueprint plan to beautify the whole area, not just create more parking. And I would argue that there's a significant amount of parking in Empire right now.
Mm-hmm. It could be used for better purposes.
I live out there, and I would say sometimes it's quite the opposite, especially as we build more housing out there.
The other thing I would add, and I think we just learned with our recent quarterly ODOT, we meet quarterly with the ODOT regional folks, and they're going to be doing some work from where we ended in the Empire on South Empire Boulevard out to Charleston. And so it might be a time to kind of coordinate whatever they're doing. They are going to be doing bike ped out there. So making sure we've got that kind of infrastructure on our side. So it makes sense. So again, just kind of picking the right projects so you get the most bang for your buck. But yeah, I hear you.
So what I'm hearing you also say is next year, in next year's budget, we won't be dealing with the parking lot, and we're going to be looking at multimodal opportunities. Is that right?
Well, I guess we can leave that to this group. We have a part of the parking lot started, so I also would, it would be unfortunate to not consider finishing that. I mean, we've heard from, example, the Dolphin Playhouse. That was where their folks mostly parked.
Nicole, I'm sorry. I don't mean in the coming year. I mean the following year.
The following year. Okay.
Yes.
We can certainly look at that to be our focus. Yeah, for sure. And then how can we find something to get a quick win here in this next year? Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Other questions or comments?
Just to Brenda's point, you know, Brenda, we talked about acquisitions. The city of Coos Bay tried to get the Gussie's property. The Gussie property, we tried to purchase that. And the financial institution came in that had the loan on it and stopped us from doing that and kept it. And here's a perfect example, an outside ownership. It's not moving forward to have that done. And the price they're asking is more than it's worth. And so I don't see it selling. And that's the disappointing part. So, you know, those are the things that we run into. I wish we could change it, but we can't. But well, building's down, but now they want $1.2 million for it, and it's not worth $1.2 million. And there we are. So who's going to buy it? And who's going to develop it? So it sits there, and it's an eyesore, in my opinion. Okay.
Okay. Moving into the required motions for the proposed budget for fiscal year 26-27, I would open the floor for a motion to approve selecting option 1 pursuant to ORS 457-435-2A as a method used to collect urban renewal property taxes.
So moved.
Thanks. Carmen, in a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any,
Aye.
thanks. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to motion B, which I would entertain a motion to approve imposing the Urban Renewal Agency's maximum 100% amount from the Division of Taxes and to impose the special levy option in the downtown plan area limited to 28%.
So moved.
Thanks, Carmen. In a second.
Second.
Thanks, Lucinda. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. And C, I would entertain a motion to approve the proposed budget for the 26-27 fiscal year and forward it to the Urban Renewal Agency for adoption at the June 16th, 2026 meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Great job. URA done.
So want to adjourn that.
And we
'cause
will
won't
adjourn
need to
the
come back.
Urban Renewal Budget Committee meeting. And do we need a couple minutes?
Do we, how do you want to, no? Can dive in.
Okay, back to you, Nicole.
Okay, so back to me. We do have a presentation, so we'll take just a minute. And you'll find on your desk a sheet for presentation order. The intention with that was to let you know we're going to couple up folks who have multiple funds they're going to present, so we don't have kind of this back and forth. So also tried to tie the printed page. So if you have a printed budget in front of you, that's the page you'll find it on. And if you're looking at the PDF from the agenda, that is the page you have it on. Just to make it a little bit easier when we're moving through this, we will bounce a little bit here. And just kind of as a reminder, a required element of the budget process is for the delivery of a budget message by the budget officer. So while this is takes some time, it's part of the process. It gives us a little checkbox. So it's going to be... Yes. Oh, sorry. I'm moving too fast. We need to do election of officers. So this is why I should not be in charge of meetings. So just like for the Urban Renewal Agency, we need to elect a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. So I would open the floor for a motion.
May I make a motion to replicate all officers from the Urban Renewal Agency to budget officers to the City of Coos Bay's budget officers?
Second.
Okay. And so for clarity, so we understand what that is, Sarah Stevens filled the role of chair, and Stephanie Kilmer was filling the role of vice chair, and Troy Cribbins the role of secretary.
Boo.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
I went for the real
Yeah,
quick and
no,
easy
that's
route.
fair. Just making sure we get that in the overall in the kind of recording.
Minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so further questions, comments? Hearing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The floor is yours.
Okay, moving into public comment. There are none. And so back to you, Nicole, for the presentation of the budget
So
message.
sorry to squirrels there.
No, it's good.
Making sure you're all awake, right?
Thanks for
Coffee.
Captain Tom here.
Okay, let's dive in here. Somewhere. Well, just patience. Okay, maybe not. I don't know if that was you or me, but okay. So just a reminder of how we're approaching the preparation of this budget. We, as always, try to be very conservative in our revenue forecasting. We try to keep our expenditures in line with how we actually spend money. We have done our best to maintain adequate reserves given our financial constraints. We also do our best to ensure we have a level of asset maintenance and replacement that allows us to continue our service levels. And we do approach this with a multi-year planning intent. Yeah, it worked. So this is just a quick snapshot of what this budget looks like. It's roughly $73 million. It's comprised of operating funds, debt service funds, capital improvement funds, and reserve funds. There are obviously some challenges that you will see and you've seen over the last several years, but we acknowledge that there is a limit to our primary revenue source, which is property tax growth in our general fund. Those were set by historic measures from the 80s and 90s back, where they put caps on how we get property taxes in. We, I think, all experience this is in our personal life. It's across the board. Costs are rising faster than the money that is coming in, and you will see in this budget the impact is the pressure on our carryover balance. Just to give a rough count of who we have in the city of Coos Bay, and it seems my totals did not go overly well. So we'll work with the top total of roughly 149 staff members. And then it's kind of broken down by department. You can see who we are, the number of employees in each department. And this is, at least in our opinion, as tight as we can be in order to provide the same level of services. Just a quick breakdown on how our personnel groups are organized. We are a group of 4 different employee groups. AFSCME is kind of our general service folks. And then we have the Coos Bay Police Officers Association, the International Association of Firefighters, and then our non-represented group. And then these are some just considerations that we can walk through tonight, trying to find a comfortable balance between with services and limited resources, doing our best again to maintain reserves as possible, trying to find funds to be very strategic about how we invest in our infrastructure. And then we have been on a track for efficiencies for quite a bit. So, if anybody's got some great ideas, we'd love to hear them tonight, too. Oops, I went twice. So what you have before you is a budget that will the intention is to have reliable infrastructure, to maintain a stable service delivery, and we're hopeful with this model we have a long-term financial stability. Tight as heck for sure, but that's our focus. So in closing, I just remind everybody that we have a really smart team being really responsible with the public funds they've been entrusted with to make sure that we are doing the most we can with the little that we have. Our goal is always to maintain essential services and to give us a position to continue on for the future. Pretty general this time. I think we'll spend a lot more time in the numbers.
Yep. Okay, moving into the review of the proposed budget, I want to center us on 2 pages to start. The first is page 4. You can see that our annual PERS costs have increased just under $1 million over the past 2 years. Really significant. One of the things that puts us in this place. And then if we scroll to page 41 to start, you can see our contingency here, $55,000. Real scary. Yep. So, let us think of that as the base as we're going through this. If we start on with General Fund 1, which starts on page 13. Nicole, to you.
Okay. So just kind of walking through, page 13 is just a general description of the fund. It also speaks about the number of FTE that are being supported by the fund. And then it steps right into, on the following page, a summary of the resources, which is followed by the breakdown, the detail of that. So that's probably a healthy place to start if we're going to have conversation, is in those detailed pages. So that moves us into page 15.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's important to point out the current property taxes, 7.35 million. The overall budget is 2 million, a little over. So our property taxes obviously don't pay what it takes to run the city. Looking at licensing and permits, these were just updated in 24-25. Nicole, can you remind us what MUPT stands for?
It's the multi-unit property tax exemption. And while we were super thrilled to get that in place, we've had no takers on that. So
what does that mean?
Can you remind us what that acronym means, Nicole?
Sure. It's a development tool, essentially. So if you were to come into this community and you wanted to build some housing, there are different parameters that put you in some different buckets, but essentially you could get access to not having to pay property taxes depending on where you're building within the city, the number of units you are building, and potentially if you are interested in building affordable housing with capital A, meaning people have to qualify for that. So there's 4 different buckets you could land in to get access to that, but you save on property taxes for a period of up to 10 years.
How are you marketing that?
Great question. When we have folks who are doing those kinds of works, we of course share that. It's on our website. We have not done a lot of front facing marketing.
I mean, that would be a good thing to take to like the realtor board, I would think. Mm-hmm. I mean, do all the realtors know that that's available?
I'm not certain that that's the case, so we can certainly try to get on the the docket for some of the different organizations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Brenda brings up a good point. I imagine SCDC knows about this as well. And okay, great.
Okay, moving to page 16, General Fund Resources continued. You'll see the Oregon Rehousing Initiative, House Bill 1518, the Oregon Rehousing Initiative, Senate Bill 5701. Remember that Nicole mentioned this earlier. Those will stay on there until the history is gone. And then the OHCS Youth Emergency Housing, which this is the last year, we'll see funding attached to that. Correct, Nicole?
Correct. There's actually another organization in our community who's going to be taking on this kind of regional work that the city did just to fill in the gap, because we had our other community organization who would normally have received these funds just was not ready for them yet. So that other organization, Southern Coast Regional Housing, these funds will now, if qualified, would run through their organization, which is where they should be. We're not a strong housing supports kind of organization. We do really well with the things we know how to do, and housing just hasn't been something in our backbone. So
I have a question around grants.
Yeah.
I saw that you hired somebody that is looks like part-time grant, because they're also in their pay, and aren't they partly human resources and finance too?
They are just within administration, and you should also know we usually split folks. We allocate. You'll see that towards the end, but it is a full-time position.
So can you tell us the grant, as we go through this, will you tell us the grants that they've been able to get
Sure.
this year? Because I'm not seeing it in here at all.
Yeah. Okay.
And then GL's last 40700, the state revenue sharing. Nicole, my understanding is this is being modified, which affects us, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Though these are estimates that are kind of based on what the LOC has given us guidance on, so they kind of watch those modifications.
Okay, moving to resources continued on page 17. I'll point out the fire protection, starting at GL, last four digits 0575 down to 0900. These are all negotiated and could change,
Right.
correct, Nicole?
These are, yes, negotiated, but they're contractual, so they are reliant upon the tax collections that these districts receive. These fire districts do not have their own operating fire department, and so they contract with this city. GMA Garnet is just a facility that's just right outside of city limits, and we provide fire protection there. The amounts that are here, when you see that they've well, I guess it's not much change, but a portion of these amounts here get sent over to the fire department's reserve account by our obligation to those districts. We've agreed to 10% going into our the reserve account. GMA Garnet's amount in its entirety goes over to the fire reserve fund.
Well, there isn't anything there.
Sorry, Brenda, what was that?
Sorry, there isn't anything in that line.
Yeah, it's been going over. So when we go to fund, that's in Fund 27. You'll see it coming in over there.
So Nicole or
Yes.
Sarah, I have a question. So the fire protection, and Chief, maybe you can answer this. Is there a formula that we use for each of these districts, like Bunker Hill, Timber Park?
Yes. So it's based on their assessed value.
The assessed value, you said?
Their assessed value,
Right.
because they all collect taxes. And then we charge, I believe it's $2 per thousand. So whatever their assessed value is. So that's why there's a difference in their contract prices. And it's also related to, their assessed value and the amount of, property they have within their district.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Jason?
Yeah, I noticed on account 360-1000 fire services reimbursements, you budgeted just 500, but historically, at least the last couple of years, there's been quite a bit of revenue there. What's the drop off there?
Yeah, great question and good eyes. So we are those large numbers are really related to our wildland deployment, which has increased over the years, and fire trucks are really expensive. So we're trying to put those dollars directly over into that Fund 27 so that we make sure we're ready when it's time to buy another fire truck. That's a kind of a side business, so it makes sense to kind of keep those funds set aside.
Nicole, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that response. So basically, we use those funds or their revenues for us for when we go out and help with wildfires. And so where are those, if there's only $500 this year, where is that? Where
They'll
are those
be in
funds?
Fund 27. So
Okay.
what comes into, what we will keep in the general fund would be our reimbursement for the labor costs.
Got it.
But the rest of everything over that will go into Fund 27. You'll see the bulk of that over
Perfect.
there. It'll
Thank
stand
you.
out like it stands out here over
Okay.
there.
Thank you.
And similarly with the lease financing proceeds, correct, Nicole? We see it here and then we'll see it again later.
You're going to see that throughout this budget, both lease financing proceeds and subscription financing proceeds. Those are a financial statement presentation issues with the GASB Government Accounting Standards Board. It's a new statement issuance in relation to leases in general, the way that they are booked on your both balance sheet and P&L, and then also subscriptions. So, long-term kind of so we're correctly hitting the right periods. They've, again, made an attempt to have government financial statements align with more private kind of financial statements. Kind of a little bit challenging. Doesn't make a lot of sense here. You'll see proceeds equal to capital outlay or not equal to, but close to, and debt service. Those are the elements you'll see that historically we didn't have on the books in a lot of these divisions. It's related to that GASB statement. Actually, 2 statements, I believe.
Okay, other questions or comments on the general fund expenditure first section? Okay, moving into city council. Nicole.
Yes. So, again, I think you'll see this kind of across the board. We try to, year over year, we try to stay as tight and close to what we've already been doing. The things that I would call out here, you can see examples of those GASB statements and capital outlay and debt service here. Those would relate to those proceeds we saw previously. Just to kind of call out what we have in contractual here is some labor attorney work. We also, I would just call out that we, for economic development, are members of South Coast Development Corporation, so that's that 17.5 in there. And if there was any other large changes, I think just the contractual there. We did some rate study work with our fee schedule this year, and whether or not we will want to expand that, that's a little bit of it there as well.
Okay, any questions or comments on city council?
I know everyone in this room knows it, but the city councilors receive absolutely no payment. Is that correct, Sarah?
That is correct.
Okay, great.
Are volunteering, as is the budget committee members from the community, with your service. So,
thank you.
Okay, moving right along to administration.
All right.
Page 25.
So this is the first you'll see personnel services show up in the budget. And again, just as a reminder, many of us are allocated across many departments and or divisions. So when you look at totals, it's not really always translatable to a person. So when you see 76,000, that's not my pay, that's a portion of pay. So in this section, again, just kind of call out what we have in contractual. And the other thing, maybe before we go there, we've done a little bit of movement between divisions. So you'll see kind of the header at the top, that administration, which historically was known as city manager's office, we changed that to administration because we brought in a few years ago, the city attorney, which was a division, we brought that in under administration. And in preparation for a change in our finance director, that came in under administration as well. When we'll talk about some great leaps and strides our new finance director has made, so we're separating that back out to acknowledge that leadership she's providing. So there is some weird shifts in the history back here for these other columns, but that's why we were doing some combining, and now we're separating them back out. So in contractual, these amounts will some of these will shift over into finance, but we have historically had over the last couple of years memberships to Net Assets, which is a lien database where we record liens we have on properties because there's back payment of something, and the title companies and banks and things can search that, and then express bill pay. Special counsel, you'll remember last year, a couple of the really challenging things we were faced with is, how do we find some dollars, and a decision was made to have our city attorney, who was an employee and working towards retirement, he was willing to step into retirement early, and he is contractual for us, so he's kind of just a time billing for us. That is where he gets paid out of. And then I guess if there's anything else that you want to know some more details on. Those capital outlay and debt service, again, related to those GASB statements.
I didn't really have a question, but I think it's worth pointing out, since this is our first personnel, when you look at the salaries versus the PERS cost, that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing no other comments, moving into urban renewal administration, starting on page 28. Nicole.
So we talked a little bit about this during the urban renewal meeting. This is where the agency management amount that both the downtown district and the Empire district help contribute towards. So the people part is across the board, everybody who helps support that, the agency's work, and then the just kind of general expenses related to that work.
Nicole, as we spoke about during the URA, that's time-based. And so can you explain your strategy to make sure that these personnel costs stay conservative based on what we know is going to happen in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at the table of overlapping taxing districts and the taxes we receive in the urban renewal agency, what we would maintain when those agencies sunset is around $1 million. That will change over time for the rest of the life of the agency. But the key for us, while we could look and say there are some more urban renewal dollars we could maybe absorb with staff time, we really try to be conservative with that, because we don't want to go over that in people costs alone, right? Because then when we absorb that back in, that $1 million doesn't support our personnel. So we want to be really thoughtful about who we put in here, make sure we're being really conservative so we stay under our share, the city's share, of what those urban renewal taxes are. I don't know if that makes sense.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no comments, we'll move to Finance Department. Brianna.
Yes, thank you. So as Nicole mentioned, during fiscal year 26, the Finance Department was combined with administration during a management transition. And so moving forward and into fiscal year 27, the Finance Department has been separated back out and is reestablished as an independent department. So the budget reflects this, which is why you see nothing was budgeted for the fiscal year 25-26. For this year, we are proposing a fairly status quo budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions on any specific line items you may have.
I have a question. As a new finance director, do you feel that the training budget is adequate?
I think so. There's a lot of internal training that I'm receiving from Nicole. She sat in my position previously, so I mean, we'll see this first year, but I do feel like it is adequate.
And then I would just add, while she is new in her role. She has been in the finance department for 4 years. Yeah. And the team is, got some years behind them too. So they're on, she's on a new timeline for management, but definitely not a new timeline for being in the finance department. So.
Awesome. Okay, moving to city attorney. As Nicole previously explained, there are no costs associated here. So unless anyone has any questions, we'll move to City Hall. Nicole.
Yes, these are costs that are generally associated with kind of operating this facility. So again, trying to be as conservative as we can. You'll see some increases. That the significant jump there is in utilities. It kind of ties to what we experience generally in costs there. The rest of that, I think, is fairly in line with where we've been historically. So happy to answer questions if you have any.
So you're saying for utilities, you feel like this year will end at around 81K, is that right?
Yeah, when you look at, the historic, the 24-25 year, we were at that 81, and I ran financials today, so I could certainly tell you where we're at as of the end of April, but I do think we're going to get real close to that. And again, just as a reminder, anytime we are not within any of those numbers, and they are all a component of carryover, we make that adjustment after the year end closes. So this is through the end of April, which may not have all charges applied yet, so that we're at 40,000. We do have a lot of our utilities because they are reoccurring. And, by the time you're getting the bill, you've already used the service. We have them on credit cards, so those credit card payments don't get posted until the end of the month. They may not be posted quite yet for April financials.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll move on to community contributions. You'll see listed here the commitment to the Boys and Girls Club. This is in lieu of a Parks and Recreation Board. Again, you'll see the OHCS Youth Emergency Housing Fund on here, which we won't see next year. And then the Sobering Center, which is restricted funding that is going to adapt. And Nicole, can you speak about that restriction?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are dollars that the city received as part of litigation, national litigation with the opioid settlement. Those funds come with some pretty tight restrictions on how they can be used, and those services are not something that the city of Coos Bay provides to our community. There are some small ways we could use those dollars, some training and things like that. But we're going to end up with so much left over that several years ago, the discussion was, how do we support a sobering center in our community? And this was our, the city's way of doing so. We obligated those funds through fiscal 28. I know they are still working on that, getting that set up. It will be in one of the pods at the jail. I think we are having some conversations with ADAPT right now to see what future support might look like. So we may be negotiating what that looks like moving forward. But again, we're going to get these dollars over a 15-year settlement period, and we have to have a way to spend them. So it seems the most helpful, because communities of 10,000 or more population are the only ones who receive that. So there is no other city in the county who got those settlement dollars. So it's kind of our help for the overall betterment of the county.
Nicole, can you just give us a bit more background about the Boys and Girls Club and the history of that agreement?
So my understanding of that is long-term before I was here, but it is to help support a summer program at the Boys and Girls Club. It's a contractual obligation, and it gives some activities for our kids in this community to do during the summertime.
I'd like to fill in a little bit more. So going back a few years, and I'm not going to say how far back, but anyway, the city of Coos Bay decided to start a summer program, and we did. And then we found out that we could not handle it, and we were not capable of doing that. So the Boys and Girls Club contractually agreed to take it on for us at $20,000 a year. And as time went on, the budget has been cut down to 10. But this is something that they took on for us. So it's a summer program that they've taken on and maintained for many years. So,
thank you.
Other questions or comments on community contributions? Okay, moving to non-departmental. And I realize that the online version does not match. So I will find that number, but page 39 on your printed version.
Hopefully I got it right on here, like maybe 57 in your online version.
42.
Okay, well.
39. It does match. It does match.
Okay.
It does. Thank you.
Okay. True.
Gotcha.
And I only used the one from the agenda packet. I'll make another column next year. Okay, so in this, you'll see pretty much, materials and services are staying pretty stagnant. You're going to see throughout this budget, personal services are going to shift here and there where we're doing that allocation, and so kind of a overview of what everybody's tasks are in the coming years and where they best fit. So this is intended to be kind of our internal service fund, so things that kind of help support all departments in a way, not necessarily can be tied to one specific. So, like, for example, insurance, like globally, unless we can tie it to a specific building or program, it stays here, which is really our largest expense in this section is insurance. And this is liability insurance, just to clarify.
And Nicole, can you explain why the library building maintenance falls here instead of within the library budget?
So all cities within our library service district are responsible for providing the building for the library, as well as some support services such as finance and things like that. So in this is our kind of cost towards helping maintain that building that we have responsibility for.
Okay. Moving to other. Nicole.
So this section handles our debt service, our transfers, and our de jure financing with the urban renewal. The debt service that is listed here, we moved to a lease model with Enterprise for many of our departments several years ago. You don't see any current here because most of our vehicles are attributable to a very specific department, so they've moved out of here. The lease principal and subscription principal, those items are again that GASB. And then you'll see the water board has some debt service here. And that's because the water board as an entity cannot go out and get debt on its own. And so it relies on the two cities to go do that when necessary for their projects. And these are pretty old debt issuances. What happens is we get that invoice, we tell the water board, they cut us a check, and it's like pretty well-oiled machine to get those taken care of. And then transfers, these help support other funds. The North Coos is the city's contribution for our dispatch service, just like all the rest of the entities pay a fee for that service. This is our contribution towards that. There is a required by resolution contribution to the rainy day fund based on the general fund's carryover balance. That was put in place in, the early teens, 20 teens. We are not transferring to the equipment reserve fund. That's related to those contractual arrangements. We were bringing it all into the general fund and then transferring it. Now we just post it directly. We don't have that transfer happening. A change in this current fiscal year, if you'll remember, we moved to, well, you guys might not actually started this July 1st to help the Parks Commission manage their budget, but we started a Parks Fund and moved that out of the general fund. And so there is a portion that the general fund is paying towards that, largely people who are over there. And then the capital improvement fund transfer is really to support our technology needs outside of what our tech fee covers.
Nicole?
Yes.
That transfer fund to the parks is significantly lower this year. Is there a reason?
Well, a portion of it was the balance that was attributable to what was sitting in the general fund in the past year. So now, as we've worked through this year,
okay,
that was setting up the fund essentially with what was already there. So this is operationally more in line.
Okay.
And then I think we already talked about, I think, sore thumb, but we might as well do it again. Contingency and unappropriated are, they are what they are.
What would best practices be, Nicole?
Yeah, gosh, do we want to say that out loud? So, best practice would be, right, we all have savings accounts. What would that look like for us? We should have, at least a 6-month, set aside. It should be more than that. If we can't do that, we should at least have until we have property taxes coming in, which should be a 4-month reserve. We spend in general fund about $1 million a month in payroll. So, we're going to have potentially some challenges in this next year. And how we'll try to handle that if they come up, cash flow, we'll just see how it goes. But we usually do through the council an option to do interfund transfers. We do short-term kind of transfers to cover that rather than having to go out to the bank and get funding for essentially like a credit line or something. So that is what we would maybe rely on if we needed to in this next year. Yeah.
Do we pay us the interest for that borrowing that funds? Do we get interest or not?
We haven't had to do that yet.
I mean, if we do interfund funds, do we pay? Do we get a fee for that or not?
So the only instance we have experienced with that currently is what we do between the urban renewal and the city. Okay. And yes, there is an interest calculation for that. We have not, knock on wood, had to do that kind of cash flow management issue, and so we'd have to have that discussion, right? You're going to charge interest, which is fair, but you're taking money from a place there's not even money yet, so. Yeah, it will be a discussion we'll have to have if we end up there.
And going back to Councillor Kilmer's point, I thought I heard that PERS went up $500,000. So if PERS hadn't gone up $500,000, we would be sitting in pretty good shape.
A little bit different place, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and just for everybody's kind of background information, PERS goes through an actuarial valuation every 2 years, and so we get new rates every 2 years. And that valuation is based on who's in the system at the time receiving benefits and planning for the future. So that's essentially what happens is they try to right size all of the organizations paying into PERS. So
that's $500,000 a year or $600,000. How much is it annually?
Totally for PERS?
Well, no, because biennium, the legislature increased the rate. What was that rate increase to us annually?
I think we're close to a 30% increase in this biennium.
We are at about 34% of the salaries, the PERS contribution is, which is...
There is a conversation happening across the state right now with pension bonds, potentially to help us relieve our unfunded liability. That's what our significant increase is. We have more money going out than what we are contributing in, and so we have an unfunded liability gap. And there is a conversation happening right now to value what that would look like for districts. We're participating in that. That's an opportunity through LOC to see what it would look like if we got pension bonds. Would we reduce that gap? We still have that payment to make, but it's going to something that we're going to see that gap close. Hard to tell, but we're looking at it. We got to look at everything.
Can you repeat the explanation, maybe with a little more detail about what the de jure financing is, just so I understand it? It's a big number, and I just don't understand it that well.
Yeah, so for urban renewal, the only thing we can use property taxes on is the repayment of debt. So right now, in both districts, we only have 2 issuance of debt. So just to use some simple, easy numbers, let's say we get $1 million of property taxes in urban renewal, and we have $500,000 in debt to pay. That means we have a $500,000 of gap that we wouldn't be able to use for anything because we don't have debt. So the city loans the urban renewal those dollars, and they repay that debt, which we put on the books through resolutions and loan agreements on both sides in order to use those dollars towards a project. So it's really that gap financing kind of piece, what's coming in and what do we have debt to pay out. And du jour has 3 days. That's all we allow and we usually do it same day, but that's what it speaks to.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on other? Okay, we're about halfway through. You want to take a small break, or do you want to get through police and then take a break? Let's take a 7-minute break. We'll come back at 7:42.
I like that you took.
Are you babysitting that?
over my time. I know.
We need to hit the gavel.
Calling back to order.
No way. We'll bring folks back, and we are going to start on Police Administration and Operations, page 45. Love that energy. And we're going to hear from Mike and Tom.
Yes.
Right? Sorry, just Tom. Great.
Just me.
Not just Tom. Tom, I'm sure going to do great.
All right. So the police department is obviously the largest department within the city. There's 48.5 full-time employees that make up the police department. Maybe just for clarity, I'll go through kind of how those personnel are divided up amongst the 3 different account funds that exist within the police department. So the first account that we'll look at is the 240 fund. That is comprised of the 24 sworn police officers, which is the chief of police down to the newest police officer. There's also 3 people that work in our records department that are in there, a supervisor and 2 record specialists, and then our part-time evidence technician come out of the 240 fund. The dispatch center will be coming out of Fund 10. There's 18 dispatchers, 2 supervisors, and Tessa, the communications administrator, that come out of that fund. And then new to this budget is going to be the 243 account, which is the code compliance officer that historically has lived under the community development account. But this year we're going to be moving it under the police department. It has at times been under the police department. It was under community development for quite a while, but has since been moved back under the police department. So that's kind of the general overview of our department. If anybody has questions as we go through this, please feel free to just let me know. But looking at the 240 account, we have some personnel cost increases, as you'll see as a common theme throughout the entire budget. But looking at material and services, we really went through line by line and looked at this and tried to figure out if we could reduce any of these that wouldn't impact the operational capabilities of the police department. So we were able to reduce our material and services by just shy of $20,000. But other than that, it's really a status quo budget. You may see in there one that increased was our dog care. If you remember this past year, we did add another canine to our force. We historically have had a detection narcotics canine. We added a patrol canine to our force that has been very active since adding that. And I think that is kind of the only real notable thing within there. But if there's any questions, I'm more than welcome to answer any questions about the 240.
Nicole or Tom, the PERS retirement line, that also includes some significant leave accruals, correct?
Not in this. These are not.
Where does that show up?
So those are really just accounted at year end with the audit. We don't, our budgetary basis is like cash basis. We're not using an accrual, so accounting for those kind of liabilities that are they are in the books, but they're not on our budgetary books.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
Okay, moving to page 46. Still Fund 240. Any questions here?
The cost of vehicles went from what, 320 to 225 this next year. Is that just because we're not purchasing as many vehicles?
So I believe, again, I don't know exactly how all this is laid out when it comes to GASB, but last year we got 4 vehicles out of the lease program. This year we're only projected to get 3, so it's probably going to lower that amount by the difference of that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And the K-9 decrease is because it was 16,000 last year.
Which K-9 assigned. So yeah, we had ramped up some money in that as we purchased the K-9, and so now that the K-9 is purchased, we don't have, there's no reoccurring fee with that. It's just essentially the dog care that goes into that.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, more of a silly question. Can you guys judge an ROI on the K-9s? Are you able to determine that? Return on investment?
It's probably difficult to judge what that looks like, but I think from a community safety standpoint, maybe I can relate this to something. A couple weeks ago, there was a gentleman that pulled a handgun on one of our local business owners, and because of the K-9, we were able to apprehend that person pretty immediately afterwards. So, judging an ROI is probably difficult in that context because every circumstance is different, and just from a public safety standpoint, the sooner we can apprehend people is probably the better.
But you would definitely say they're valuable partners.
Absolutely. Both the narcotic detection dog and the patrol dog. They also find evidence, the patrol dogs can, so they'll find firearms and stuff that are used in some major cases and homicides.
Thank you.
Just one more question on the K-9. Are they used strictly inside the city limits or jurisdictions that we have, or are they used in multiple jurisdictions?
They're used in multiple jurisdictions. They historically have been requested in Douglas County, up in Reedsport, down to Curry County, to Gold Beach, and of course all across Coos County.
So we've been leasing cars for, I don't know, a couple of years now, 3 years, 4 years. Is it beneficial? I mean, I know it was a new program that we started, and so it's successful?
I think we're still kind of learning because we dove into this and didn't include the police department initially because the concern was they use their cars quite a bit differently than the rest of the team members. So we had several years where we really just had Public Works, Community Development folks getting vehicles, and then we've just recently added, and I guess fire was probably in there initially too, and now we've added the police team. So while we started seeing trends, I think we almost have a reset, but the goal, right, where we're still trying to get to is that resale, returning those vehicles in the right time pays for itself over time. So we're not out those purchases of vehicles. So I think we're still waiting to see that it's going to pencil out as we thought.
All right, thanks. And so before the break, I asked about PERS, what it would cost us, and I went and talked to Nicole specifically because I know it's 34%, but to put it in perspective, it's almost $2 million it's costing the city this biennium, maybe even more when we get done with it. So that's a huge gap that we're having to incur all the time. And the previous biennium was, I don't know, over $1 million. So it just keeps ratcheting up. It's getting to a point where it's going to be very difficult for us to take on that expense, I guess. Am I correct?
Yeah, and if you wanted to go look within the budget document in the front section where we have the kind of overview, there is a PERS table in there, and the biennium is, it's 2 years, every 2 years. So the 24-25 was $6.5 million in costs. Going backwards, the 22-23 was 4.7. So we're talking about a $1.8 million in the last biennium. We could expect that's going to easily go over 2.8. We regularly saw an increase. The previous was 1 million change. So it's not getting better. It's getting worse. I would expect we're going to be in the 2.2 probably.
At some point, it will get better. It is on a bell curve, right? I mean, it's going to. I agree. It's unsustainable for municipalities
but
right now.
I'm not so sure about that bell curve. I asked Arnie about this a long time ago, and I don't see it reducing itself at all. And so at what point is it? And right now we're at 30-some%, which is, without this happening, I don't see it reducing itself. And so I think it's something we're going to face, and I don't see it going away.
No, we will be facing it in the short term. I just meant at the 40,000-foot viewpoint, at some point.
I think they've done some revisions of the whole system several times, right? Try to reset. And I think that's probably still pending. We'll see that happen again. Each time they do that, they create another tier, and they reduce the retirement benefit access for that tier. So yes, if they make the right, trigger, moving those knobs and things to make it work, it can. But we're talking long term.
Right.
It's going to take
probably the next 10 years.
Yeah,
unless the legislature makes some substantial correction.
Change.
Right.
Absolutely.
But the message is that we cannot control that as
Correct.
a municipality. We need to talk to our senators and state representatives and see what they might do.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into to Fund 243. As Tom spoke, this fund has moved a couple of times, and
Yes.
now it is back here.
Correct. This is our code compliance officer. 0.89 of this is the full-time employee. It is an actual full-time employee. That other portion comes out of another fund just because of some crossover between the police department and community development, and so there's the makeup for that full position within the budget. But these are transferred over. It's pretty status quo for the one employee that is in that position, and then there's some material and services that are pretty lean for the needs of that position. You may notice on their hearings officer, I can just give some context to that. So if there is a case that progresses through the process and we actually have to hold a hearing similar to a court hearing, these don't exist maybe in that realm of a courthouse. They actually exist here in the council chambers, and we have to hire a hearings officer that hears both sides of those cases, and so that's what that fund is allocated for. But any other questions, I'm more than welcome.
Is nuisance abatement 2445, is that enough?
Yes, it will be.
Thank you.
But not enough to be effective.
Our code compliance officer is doing a fantastic job and is being creative in trying to find ways to work with some other community partners to actually find some good solutions to a lot of these. And so the nuisance abatement one is what we're using specifically if we have a non-compliant person that will not clean up their property, is what we're kind of reserving that for. We're trying to get really creative in the way that we're kind of approaching this and trying to clean up some of the blight and mess around the community. So.
Thanks. Okay, seeing no other comments, we're going to keep you on your toes and move all the way to page 103 and hear from Teresa with the dispatch center.
So what Captain Lindahl said, we have 18 dispatchers, 2 communication supervisors, and myself under this fund. In all areas, you'll see our increase in staffing is mostly due to the PERS. And then materials and services pretty much stay status quo for what we're doing. We're not looking for a significant increase in anything at this time.
So are these increase in costs also charged out to the other entities that we're handling?
Yes, so there is a contract with each, and I do know that there was an increase in, I can't remember, I think it was just a single dollar amount.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, so the contracts are by population for law enforcement and by call for fire and EMS services. And so I know there was an increase on both of those.
Okay. And we do all of Coos County?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Do we charge the ambulance service for their calls?
Bay cities, no, but there are several districts within Coos County, and so we do dispatch for Coquille Ambulance District, Myrtle Point Ambulance, Powers Ambulance Districts, so they do get charged.
They do get charged, but not Bay Area Ambulance.
Yes, we do not dispatch for them. They just monitor our calls, or we'll transfer calls over to them. So.
All right, thanks. That's it.
Okay, any other questions for Teresa? Thank you. Okay, we're going to flip back to page 51 and hear from Jeff.
Good evening. So the fire department is comprised of 22 full-time staff members. That includes the fire chief, 3 battalion chiefs that are in charge of day-to-day operations. They're stationed at the main station on the L-Ground. We have 3 lieutenants who run daily operations at an Empire Fire Station, and then 9 full-time firefighter engineers, and then we currently have 5 apprentices The apprentices are from a $1.6 million grant that we obtained a couple years ago. And we are in the second year of that grant, which ends December of this year. So when we're looking at the budget line items, there's quite a bit of difference between
2 years ago and where we're at the last year and this year. So if you're looking through, salaries went up quite a bit last year. Those are down a little bit this year, or this coming year, and that reflects dropping off the apprentices at the end of December coming up. That also makes some other adjustments. Overtime is another big one that has changed. You'll see over the last couple years, we've started doing the wildland deployments that was talked about earlier. Last year, 2025, we had $134,000 in expenses, in overtime expenses because of the deployments. But after all of our expenses were paid, we netted $136,000 that went into our equipment reserve fund. So it's still paying for itself plus some. So, moving into materials and services, most line items are fairly status quo. There's a few that can point out. Contractual, line 2108 has increased. Those are just from standard costs. Contractual includes our air compressor that we use to fill our SCBA cylinders, the breathing air cylinders. Those costs go up. Generator, the elevator at our main station, all those kind of expenses all come under that contractual. And then on the second page, line 2306, ladder testing, that's also a contractual obligation. So this year we moved that from its own line item and just put it into contractual so we can keep those like expenses together. The apprentice 2110, that has $5,000 is what's line item. That's primarily, I'd say, more of a just way to kind of capture some expenses, a way we can code our expenses to that to keep track. That will maintain or stay there even though the apprentice program will leave. It's also labeled as resident interns, so we have the firefighters that are students that go to SWAC in the fire science and EMT paramedic class. So there are some expenses that we incur for that. We help to pay for some textbooks, and then also like their EMT licensing and certification expenses. So there's still some ongoing costs for that. And prior to this, they were just kind of lumped into other line items. So we're just trying to be able to break it out so we can keep track of some of these expenses better. And then if you go down to 2207, special department supplies, that one is a significant change. Last year's, or current year's budget cycle is $21,000. That's being reduced to $9,000. But we added a new line item, 2208 or 9, the emergency management. This used to be included in special department supplies, but I just wanted to split that out so we could actually have dedicated funding that I could keep track of that was specifically used for emergency management and disaster recovery supplies or response. Anything else that's not categorized goes into that special department supplies. So I just wanted to make sure we kept those separate. And if you're ready to move on to the next page.
52 is petroleum and diesel. Those are thoroughly status quo. You know, with costs going up, we would expect to see those increase. With our newer fleet that we have, they're much more efficient, and so we're actually not using as much fuel, and so fuel costs are about the same for us. I believe that's about the only major things I can think of. Any questions you have?
I think your microphone might have died.
I just said a small one, Chief. The ladder testing, you said you moved to contractual, but it still shows 2,500 proposed? 2306.
Oh, that's correct. We planned on moving it. I guess
That's okay.
That was one of the things we were planning on moving up there.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. Are you looking at grants to retain those interns for a longer period of time?
So the interns are the college students that we bring in every year. We try to keep 8 of them. Currently we have 6. But the apprentice program is the one that was funded through Foley. That was $1.6 million. It came up for renewal this year in March, I believe. And we applied for 3 positions because the funding was a lot lower than what it was the first year. We were denied because we still have an active program. And so we'll have to wait until next cycle when our apprentice program is over. Then we'll be able to apply. Hopefully, I mean, I feel like our program is really successful. We brought on 5 initially. We've already hired one of them as a full-time position, and then we backfilled that over. So we're maintaining that plan.
Great. Thanks for seeking out those opportunities. Okay, we're going to, again, keep people on their toes and flip to page 114 and stay with Jeff for the Fire Equipment Reserve Fund.
So this Fire
114.
Equipment Reserve Fund was initially created with leftover funding that was from the general obligation bond. Since then, we continue to put, which was mentioned earlier, we have our contract districts, Timber Park, Libby, and Bunker Hill. So a portion of that, 10%, goes into our Equipment Reserve Fund every year. And that's where you see in the services, GMA Garnet, which was also listed on the other revenue, but had a 0. That's because Nicole said the entire amount comes into this, and then the 10% of the other contract districts comes in here. Moving on down to wildland deployments, estimating $100,000. If you look over the last couple cycles are actually adopted, that was actually quite a bit more than what we're estimating, and all things point to we'll have a long, hot wildlife fire season this year.
Chief, we passed an ordinance that we will now be charging insurance companies if, for instance, there's an accident in the city limits. And where would I see the projected revenues from that? Is that going into this fund?
That will be going into this fund. I'm not sure what area that will be going under.
We haven't really addressed that yet because it's kind of an unknown. It's like while we want to acknowledge it's going to bring in dollars, unless it brings in dollars, it's such a challenge. You put in a revenue and a corresponding expense to keep it balanced, and if the revenue doesn't come in, the expense is still on the books. So we're almost better. This is how we treat grants. We don't put them on the books until we see that money, we see the whites of the eyes kind of thing. So if that happens, we'd likely need to come back with a supplemental budget to acknowledge that revenue source and then appropriate those funds. Right now it's uncertain, and rather than kind of beef up the budget, it seems more reasonable to wait until we know what the experience is.
So I imagine by next year, though, we would see it allocated because we'll have a year's history, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
One of the on here is the council adopted this year in January. We purchased aerial ladder, fire truck. So that would be reflected on the council adopted line. $600,000, that is for bank loan to pay off the remaining balance of that. We were able to transfer $250,000 from the Equipment Reserve Fund to make that purchase. The next page, 115. The debt service is listed there. That is our annual payment to U.S. Bank for that aerial truck, $7,000, which is basically what's covered by our contractual expenses from the contract districts and GMA Garnets. If we do not bring any other revenue, we still have the ability to pay that payment every week. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Moving to Kelly in planning.
What page are we on, Sarah? Sorry.
55.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm Kelly, the planning administrator. The planning department, our division is part of the community. Okay, we'll try this side instead. So the planning division is part of the community development department. We are responsible for overseeing that we follow the statewide planning goals that are mandated by state law. So really we focus on not only the long-term planning when it comes to like I'm trying to think of the Empire updates, the blueprints, yes, thank you, and things like that in the comprehensive plan. We also provide a lot of that public-facing customer service to the citizens, developers. We provide staff for the Planning Commission. So we really do have a lot of involvement with all the permitting, not just land use permits, but building permits, and the public works permits and business licenses. So you'll see that we have 1.76 full-time employees. We actually have 4 bodies. Of course, that is, those personnel expenses are also in that Exhibit B that go through different line items. But pretty much we have our status quo budget with some cuts, not very many changes. So if you had any questions, I'd of course be happy to answer them.
Yes, please.
Aren't we going to be hiring another building inspector?
Yes, and that is actually going to fall under Marcy in our building administration. Yeah.
Okay, that'll be coming up then. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Seeing no other questions, we're going to move to engineering with Nicole, page 60.
Okay, thank you. So in this budget, you will see there's a shift in personnel costs. We had in the current year, of course, one thing is always going to be allocations, but we are contemplating a position that we've left vacant for a bit to help support not just engineering, but our operations team as well. And rethinking that, historically it's been a contract admin specialist, so they really kind of did more administrative tasks, but we actually want to have somebody who has kind of dual duty, who can actually be out in the field sometimes and do some inspection work. So if approved, that would be a position we'd put out on the streets starting in January. So that's a portion of why there's a difference in the personnel services. And then as you move into materials and services, that's a lean and mean kind of, this is what the best we can do in cutting down, but still delivery of services. To questions, absolutely willing to help. Normally Jennifer would cover this, but she's out, so filling in the gap.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay. Let's see. So we're moving to the transportation fund next with Greg, which is on 69.
Yes. Thank you. So I'll be presenting the transportation fund that supports the operation and maintenance and improvement of the city's transportation infrastructure, including 190 lane miles of paved roads, 14 lane miles of concrete roads, and 23 lane miles of gravel roads, sidewalks, signage, city vehicles and heavy equipment, and related transportation systems. The primary revenues for the transportation fund are the state shared gas tax revenues, the fund exchange, formerly known as the STBG grant, the transportation utility fund, and the beginning fund balance, or the carryover. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the materials and services section of this budget.
So the franchise fee went down, the electric utility franchise fee? No, it went up. Never. I don't know. We had 4 and 12. That's what we're at actual, and we're looking at 390 now on 0100, the franchises.
So again, kind of a best guess as far as a utility fee coming in. It's so just as a reminder how franchise fees work. Those are agreements that we have with utility providers for their right to use the right-of-way for their infrastructure,
right.
Which means if they earn on that infrastructure revenues, we get a percentage of that.
So in this case, that's a positive thing because that's a revenue line.
Correct. Yes.
Being conservative with the estimation
Yeah.
of the funds is a good call.
I guess I think there's a concern that the ending balance is really dropped during the current year. So I'm wondering if there's anything that we should trim this year so that there's a little bit bigger reserve going into next year.
Well, I think that I think we've trimmed this budget pretty good going into it. We want to make sure that we can provide the right services, the right level of service, maintain our infrastructure the way it is intended or needs to be maintained. We do, as Nicole referenced earlier, we do have a pavement condition index that we reference when we're looking at street rehabilitation or street maintenance that does come up. And so we got to be cognizant of those funds as well.
And then it's also, I would acknowledge it's a little bit challenging to see what, ending fund balance would kind of look like when you're looking at, for example, the actuals for, 24-25, the unappropriated is $4 million, and then it looks like it drops down to $250. And that $4 million is really the difference of revenues over and expenses for the year. It's known now, and we do expect that there would be something similar to that, moving into the following years. So maybe a closer indication would be like the total budget of 6.9 and 25 versus the total budget of 5.9 and 26, or 27. Again, budgetary is like best guess revenues, best guess expenses, and we always find we land somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and another thing I'd like to point out is this year particularly, it's been kind of a great year for going out for bids. We've had several projects that have come under both staff's estimate and engineering's estimate. And so we've been able to see maybe some of those cost savings and maybe help our carryover for next year as well.
And of, all of the funds, this is one of them that I don't feel a lot of angst over because those numbers aren't zeros in the, the contingency and unappropriated. So, but yeah, noted, right? All of our funds are seeing a decrease.
Can you speak to the construction bike ped paths last GL 3180 on page 71? We had council adopted just under $200,000. We haven't spent anything there. And I think that is because we're waiting to have a plan that is comprehensive, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and so this fund is it's funded from 1% of the state gas tax. We're mandated to allocate at least 1% to this fund. So this fund is always hopefully graduating or building up. So the year prior, we did spend some of the dollars out of this fund for bike lane improvements. Hopefully, as more projects come up that require those improvements to be done, we will use those dollars for those improvements.
And then, sorry, to carry the conversation a little bit further, this is one of the combination opportunities we took advantage of. Some of the transportation networks activities sat in our capital improvement fund, which was Fund 45. And so you'll see in some of these line items here in Fund 2, those history columns have zeros. And that's because that's sitting over in Fund 45 for history. So while it may have the appearance that there wasn't funds spent in the, transportation utility fee or bike ped. When we get to Fund 45, they'll see some of that history.
Okay, any other questions for Greg?
Yeah, Greg, I thought I saw that TUF, we expected $1.5 million in the coming year for those fees, but then I see, sorry, give me a second, capital outlay 3170, that we were spending 1.2. Is that just because we have some carryover from the prior year?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, do you feel like we're gaining on where we were before we originally put that fund in, as far as making improvements?
Oh, absolutely. I think this fund specifically has benefited the city tremendously. I think without it, we would only be able to do so many roads a year, repair only so many potholes a year. I think that this fund has allowed us to really capitalize our efforts with that help.
Do you remember how many potholes we went out on bid for? And I mean, was it like 200 or something, 190, or I don't remember?
Yeah, last year, I think it was, large potholes. This is potholes that staff cannot perform. I think it was 90 potholes over the year. I think we did 2 projects last year, pothole sizes that we could not repair ourselves. But I think last fiscal year, so that 90 that was done per contract with the contractor. But I think we performed almost 400 at staff level, staff performing those repairs.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to Carmen's favorite fund. Is it your favorite fund, Carmen? Water quality?
I think we're going to do parks. Is that next? Fund 37?
Oh, I apologize, Greg. Yes, parks. Page 121.
Let me scroll down there real quick.
Both of those funds
Both
are
of
pretty
your
pretty
favorite?
special to me.
Both of those funds are pretty special. Yours is pretty special.
So just as a reminder, this is the one that had moved, correct?
That is correct. So the Parks Fund supports the operation and maintenance of the city park systems, recreational facilities, landscaping, and related public amenities. Like Councilor Stevens said, notable change is that the park operations are now budgeted within a standalone parks fund rather than within the general fund. This improves transparency and better reflects the operational costs associated with it maintaining the city's park system. Revenues for the park system, a significant portion of the park fund is supported by the transfer from the general fund. Additional revenues include grants, when we can get them, private donations, and the carryover from the general fund. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the park system.
I first want to commend the work that's been done on the boardwalk, and I see that we are also focused on making some additional improvements in the coming year. The boardwalk, to me, is part of that park system, and I just had a guest at the casino approach one of our managers, and they said, "We love this community, we love this city, but your boardwalk, you're not taking care of it." They weren't talking to me, they were talking to another manager. And they referenced the fact that they went down to the boardwalk. There were unhoused people there. There was garbage. They didn't feel safe. And I want to say the work that you do is great. But I think we are to the point where we need to contract some dollars out for someone to clean that boardwalk on a weekly basis. And I think it is, to me, it's, we talk about Charleston being the gateway to the oceans. That boardwalk is the gateway, from my perspective, into this community. And I know we've done work on signage, and I know we're talking about re-roofing buildings, but we don't have enough dollars or enough staff members, right, to be able to do the work that it really needs to be maintained. I know in the past, Sarah, I believe we used SoWeb for contracting out and doing some work, and I think John Toppett's Park. I feel like we need to consider redlining something in this budget to focus on making sure that we take care of that boardwalk, because it is the gateway. It's the first thing people see, and I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but it's concerning to me that we are trying to make improvements. It's just not fast enough, right? Because it continues to decline.
Well, you know you're talking to me now, because this is my baby. As far as I'm concerned with the budget. And what I see is the daily maintenance. I see the pigeon droppings. I see the mildew. And I walk that boardwalk 3 to 4 times a week. I love it. So but I agree. It needs constant maintenance, and it's not getting it.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, I was down there today, and I go down there often. And the thing is that, and our staff is only so much, right? I mean, we only have so much staff, and they can't maintain that. So I totally agree. And then we got dollars appropriated properly from urban renewal to fix some of the stuff that needs to be done, and that's great. But I don't know what we're going to do about the pigeons, but I'm telling you, all the signs have pigeon stuff on it, and it's everywhere. And I watched some tourists today. They just kind of tiptoed around, and they didn't interact with the boardwalk like it's meant to be. So I think I agree, we need to do something. I don't know what that is, but I think it should be done weekly. Oh, and there was a sleeping bag up there. I didn't see homeless up there, but there's a sleeping bag, a couple beer cans, and some garbage. So anyway, and I know it says dusk to dawn. You're not supposed to be there. I'm not sure that's going on. But also I think we might want to put in no camping, because obviously they're not supposed to be camping there either, right? I mean, that doesn't mean that's not within our ordinance. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, that is a no camping area, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we treat it as if it's a park.
Correct.
And we don't
Yeah.
allow camping in our parks.
Okay.
Yeah, and so staff does clean the trash cans and pick up down there every day. I think during the grow season, we can go down there and weed eat once a week. But I hear what you're saying, and it is tough for staff to maintain that level of service that you're referencing.
I want to reiterate, the staff does a great job with what they have. It has nothing, we just don't have enough team members, right? And we're talking about, right, being on a really slim margin. And so I just think we need to find some place to contract some dollars to have them help to maintain it to the level I think we'd like to see it.
Sounds like a new revenue source of some sort.
I've spent a lot of time with this budget, not as much as you all, but maybe the second most after staff. And the only place within this budget I think that there's any flex is on page 89, which is our lodging tax funds. And I know we're not there yet, so we can talk about that when we get there. But I really feel like that's the only place where there's some flexibility. So let's make sure we bring this back up then.
One more thing I'd like to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just said agreed, yep.
I was just going to say, another thing that I would like to note is that our Parks Commission is very active, and they are constantly talking to staff about alternate funding sources, understanding that our parks doesn't have a resource element for it other than the general fund. So our Parks Commission, Councilor Matthews is on it. They're really moving forward with trying to find alternative funding sources, and the grants that we are searching for also are alternative funding sources that we can utilize within the parks. So kudos to the Parks Commission for pushing us and trying to help move along some resource finding.
Just as a follow-up to where our grants are at, this is where you'll see the bulk of where our grants are. In this current fiscal year, and even in last year, the grant coordinator position was really supporting the administration, the side of the housing grants that we had from the state in response to sheltering and rapid rehousing work. that is now passed on to that other organization. Those were a huge and heavy lift that we didn't really expect to have all here. So that's the majority of the work that has happened, is making sure we are compliant with those grants. And now that those are closing down, she has focused really a lot on parks, and you're seeing that here. She's done a lot of work working with both police and fire to kind of help round out. They've been successful grant writers in the past, but kind of expanding that out a little bit more. So you will see continued growth in, grant awards, but we've really been clearing up legacy. But you do see there's, 200,000-ish coming in here in the Parks Fund.
Thanks, Craig.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, now Carmen's favorite one.
Well, just before we close this one out.
Sure, yeah.
I also want to kind of clarify that this creation of the Parks Fund has been very helpful for the Parks Commission itself. We have requested that staff gives us a budgetary update quarterly, which you guys have been doing, and it's been wonderful. And I think that that's why we're seeing a little bit of movement towards trying to be creative in solving some of these situations. Like, we need more funds, but we're trying to squeeze a rock here to get some juice. So, yeah, what does that look like? And honestly, I think it's going to be maybe outside of the city's, focus, and maybe more of like a nonprofit friends group as a possibility. So that's, something we talked about, but also there's other types of fees that other communities use that I don't know if they would go over well here, but some kind of fee. I don't want to push out anything.
Be like a park district?
Parks
Park and
district
Rec?
would be an amazing thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and and it's been talked about. Lise Hamner's talked about it. Maybe something to do with the college and whatever. I think it's something that we should look into. I'm not sure that. I think we just need to look into it and do some exploring.
Yeah, and I agree that there's a lot more to be desired, and the Parks Fund will be something that I will try to fight for as much as possible, as build staff, to see that increased, because our parks are really what I think lend to the livability of our community, and without good parks, I think it just makes it a little bit more dreary around here. And we have a lot of pride in the parks that we do have. The boardwalk is beautiful in so many ways. It could use more help, but I'm down there on a regular basis. I love it. Mingus Park is beautiful. It could still use more upgrades, of course. John Toppit's, they're gems of our community, and they get used heavily. Now it's like, how do we fund that in a way that feels like we're meeting the mark that we want? So I appreciate it.
Not to belabor this, but I think, we have such an engaged Parks Commission who are willing to roll up their sleeves, which is why this accounting piece is so important, bringing these together. They were straddling two funds, the general fund where operations were, and the capital fund where their capital expenses. And now we've put them together. They can see their picture. They know how to manage those dollars better and be planning now. It just helps focus in that work.
Great comments, thanks. Okay, I'm going to propose that we do water quality and then we adjourn for the night, but we'll see how we feel after water quality. So,
alrighty, well.
What page?
75.
75.
Okay. On mine, it's 75. So I have a little backstory, as always, and hopefully it'll help with some of the questions and different things. But water quality funds are used for the operation and maintenance of the city's sanitary sewer and stormwater system. This will be the 6th year since council decided to bring in operations in-house. Our collection system consists of 90 miles of sanitary sewer, 50 miles of storm lines, soon to be 27 pump stations, 2 wastewater treatment plants, and 1 facultative lagoon, which is the city's largest asset. Sometimes the most expensive. But when creating this budget, we started with a 7.5% rate increase. We worked through that, and we reduced that. What's presented here is a 6.5%. After meeting with our consultant, Steve Donovan, and some more trimming of things, we would like to present a 6% increase. We try to be very cognizant of the fact that rate increases are difficult for citizens, but so that is our proposal. That will be around $40,000 in change that can be presented somehow. Brianna will do that for us. And we present to take that out of unappropriated ending fund balance. You will notice that there are personnel service changes, and that's due to some reallocations. Some projects ended, and so we reallocated those personnel. There is an uptake in debt service, which was predicted, with the Pump Station 27 being completed and coming online. Last year, Council approved a large amount for capital improvements in Fund 3, which are like internal capital improvements, and we are asking for the same amount this year. These expenses help both treatment plants and pump stations. The external capital improvements, like the really large ones, they go into Fund 29, which we do a transfer for. Today, two $40,000 pumps were delivered, and that comes out of this capital improvement budget. Those pumps are replacing pumps from 1972 that are critical to our infrastructure. It's at the very beginning of the treatment process, and they no longer make parts for them. So that's fun. So we swindled some deals to get the prices lowered. But staff has been diligent in spending things. However, a lot of items that come out of our Fund 3 capital are really long lead times. So, and then also when they do come in, we have to have good weather in order to take down basins and put them back online. As you all know, water quality equipment runs 24/7, 365 days a year. So it takes a beating every day. We are doing a lot of campaigns this year for Wipes Clog Pipes, so hopefully you see those. And we're going to lots of community events trying to help our equipment. Plant 1's large upgrade is complete, but there are some few smaller upgrades that we're going to keep in the loan. So we won't be seeing that loan payment until hopefully FYE 2029. We are planning for that large loan payment. There was a new boiler installed that replaced a 20-year-old boiler last year, and we're working through the kinks and quirks of startup processes and equipment and warranty things that occur. Plant 2 is starting to show some signs of aging as it's in its 9th year of operations. We ordered 2 new wasting pumps as they lasted 9 years, which is 4 years longer than what they're supposed to, so that's exciting for us. But they are $25,000 each, which we purchased them. This year, we do have to replace the ultraviolet bulbs again. That's an every 2-year thing that happens. Due to our dry climate that we've been having, we've been able to continue to remove plates from the roads and fix small underground projects. Today, since July, so this fiscal year, we've performed 70 feet of sanitary sewer and 300 feet of storm repairs, just our small crew of 6. Many of those repairs are just small 4 to 6 foot sections where we dig up the road and fix the repair and then move right along, which is cost savings. We can do that in-house, which is very helpful. Throughout televising the underground system, we're able to identify problems, and then we can go and fix them or get them on the repair process with the engineering department. Again, due to our dry climate, it has not rained as much this year as maybe in some other years past, but we have to plan for wet years, as when our flows increase, our costs increase. All across America, inflow and infiltration is a problem as aging infrastructure. So we plan for that because the increased flows incur costs. There are a lot of budget items that are not changing. One thing that we thought would change but is not is every 5 years we get the pleasure of renewing our permits through DEQ. So that's our rules and guidelines of how we can process wastewater. And this year, we received a new permit for Plant 2, and we're in the final steps for Plant 1. With those is a significant amount of change in testing procedures and not internal testing that we can do. We did our due diligence with DEQ and reduced the testing quite a bit, as saying we can't do all these things, and they agreed. We brought on consultants so that we had experts on our side to really help defend the city. And going into this 6th year, we're starting to reduce some emergency replacements due to our 5-year CIP planning projects. So the pumps that I talked about, those, when they go down, that's thousands and thousands of dollars for emergency repairs. So we have reduced all of our emergency line items because we're starting to get a handle on our deferred maintenance that we received when we took back everything in-house. So all that to say, we are presenting a 6% rate increase instead of the 6.5% that is shown here. And if there are any questions, go right ahead. It's a very long fund. We can start with the administration fund. You'll see that personnel services have dropped drastically, and that's reallocated throughout the rest of the fund. The collection merchant and bad debt went up significantly, and that is a negotiated fee with the water board. And they came to us and presented a case as to they were subsidizing some of the costs that we should be incurring. So we agreed that what they presented was correct and that we needed to fix that. So we are in the process of that, and not much else has changed in administration.
So we intended to do a 7% increase, if I understand you correctly, and you've come in at, you're recommending 6% now, right?
Yes.
And that's using Steve Donovan, who does our consulting, and does he do an analysis every year on this?
He does, and he has a crystal ball of 5 to 8 years, and so we have a 5 to 8 year budget that we don't present, but 6% is the lowest we can go according to our funding and saving for that Plant 1 loan payment that will be coming. So we're trying to put money away for that, so that way when that loan payment does come in, it's not such a hit to the community.
And we have funds set aside for the maintenance of our system, right? We plan to do so many miles or so many feet or however you do it on an annual basis, and so many pump stations every so often, and all that's figured into that, correct?
Yes, we are taking a little pause on the pump stations. Pump stations 6 and 9 last year. Fortunately, no one was injured or killed, but the wet well collapsed during construction. And that was a $2 million change order that was our first project we were paying with cash. And so that did deplete a lot of cash, and we're still recovering from that, I guess, and we probably will be for a couple more years. That was a hit that no one saw coming. And that's what happens in wastewater sometimes.
How many pump stations do we have?
We have 20, soon to be 27.
Okay.
And that is a lot for one community. It's very rare. When I talk to people, they're like, you're crazy. Most of the time, towns are built with the water supply at the top of the hill, the wastewater at the very bottom. So whenever you go into a town, you can try to find one. That's what my family does, which we're weird.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, right? My kids are like, they understand now what we look for. But so most communities have that. So you don't have a lot of pump stations and ups and downs and hills. But we have the luxury of having lots of hills and ups and downs. So we got to get the sewage up and over those hills.
And for some transparency, I think one of the reasons that we might still even be at 6% instead of lower is because we took on a $4 million pump station for Timber Cove. We were intending to get a grant from the legislature, and unfortunately we were unable to get that, so we had to take a loan out. But without the pump station being taken on, we won't have a 400-home development happening. So it was one of those balancing situations and a decision that we had to come up with and make. It will balance itself out. Once those homes all come online, it'll disperse those funds out 400 more homes, which will reduce the cost. But in the meantime, there's an up cost or upfront charge that we're having to absorb. So.
And those 400 homes will have tax revenue and sewer user fees also.
Correct.
So.
I feel like we're a broken record, but it's 2 wastewater treatment plants, 27 pumps, completely unique for this city. We didn't plan this council, previous councils, it's just what it is, and that's why. And we actually, the way we've done this allows us to have consistent, right, increases instead of big swings of 27%
Right.
or, and that people don't seem, I feel like we talk about this all the time, but I just want to make sure that the citizens understand it, and we are unique. I wish we weren't unique this way, but that's why it is so expensive here in Coos Bay.
Yes, we are the only city in Oregon that has 2 wastewater treatment plants. We reminded DEQ of that when both permits came due, because it is a very expensive process. And in the testing also, we had them alter testing, so that way the $15,000 test every quarter isn't for both treatment plants at the exact same time. There will be some overlap there, but there are a lot more of those tests that we have no control of, that we have the opportunity to do. And so the raising costs are just that. Our treatment has been great. I will say plant 2 is going right as it's supposed to be. With our lower flows, we're doing maintenance much earlier than normal. Usually we're taking down basins in June, and we took one down this week. It's been a process. But so we're going to be able to get in there and do some more maintenance than normal amount of time.
And don't we do a comparison on our rates? I mean, we compare with other cities in our jurisdiction, and we're right within, right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, so it's twofold, right? We do the work with Steve Donovan, who kind of helps both look at where we are today and where we need to be tomorrow, and then we also look out in the world. How do we compare? Which is tough, right? We're comparing rates with a system that there is no other system like this in the state of Oregon. So, but yes, we are comparable. We sit probably, not middle round. We're a little bit above the middle round, but we're in a reasonable place.
We also accept all the medical facilities and large majority of schools into our system, and that is also something that is a very high user rate, so they're sending lots of wastewater versus smaller communities don't have a hospital, a medical center, a clinic, 10 schools. So that is something that is also unique when talking to our experts. We get hammered with a lot of different things that some places don't have. So our flows are larger than maybe a community that has one center that would send them that much.
Just to beat a dead horse, there's replacement costs built into the budget.
Replacement cost of?
All the facilities.
All the
pumps
facilities.
and all the equipment.
So
That's
we.
a great segue into page 117.
Yeah, there is a good segue.
Yeah.
But before we move to that, the second part of that was, in the intro, it says 6.5% increase. It's actually 6?
So in what's presented to you is 6.5, and we are saying that we can go down to 6.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what we're asking to do.
I'm
Good
honestly
job.
impressed with the 6% target rate that you're looking at, especially coming down instead of going up. I know that's a tough one, especially with a budget as big as the Water Quality Division has, and so many different line items to deal with. That's a lot to manage. I do have a question. You guys are doing master planning for like 20-year things like that. I guess that's the next page, correct? Or the next
Yes.
segment.
Yes. And I will say too, our staff is taking a large hit on a lot of these things and having to be very critical in their changes that they're going to be making. And we call them levers, like what lever do you pull and when? And so by keeping our costs low, we have to maintain a much more watchful eye on things because we don't have a lot of wiggle room for things to go awry. But we do have a great team right now. I assume we will into the future, but they are withstanding a lot of challenges that come in, which is very helpful when there's a storm and everyone's hunkered down inside by their warm fire. Our people are out there wading through the water, making sure manhole lids get back on. The treatment plant, just when it gets hit, we bring in 3 or 4 people just to do a few valve changes because it takes 40 minutes to change one direction of water. So they're definitely doing a lot more prep work for when those emergencies happen. We aren't chasing our tail as much, which will be reflected in lower costs.
Good job.
Thanks.
So to go to the savings bank on page 117.
Yeah. So 117 is our Fund 29, if I can get there. And so that fund is where a lot of our large projects come into. There is a significant change in the council-adopted resources versus proposed, and that is due to the Plant 1 upgrade, the large portion of the upgrade being complete, and the Pump Station 27 also being complete. Some of that just due to when you pay people kind of goes in different buckets there, but that is a large thing, but those were both loan funded, so it all works out in the end. We are planning some other large upgrades at our facilities to help with capacity and some collection system changes. Again, this coming fiscal year, we're not going to be going and entering into design for a pump station at this moment in time. We aren't going to. I should very clarify that. If something goes awry, we will have to, but we're going to take 1 year off to try to recover from our collapse of the wet well. We put quite a bit away in the unplanned and emergency, and that's just due to the aging system. We always try to have $1 million there, and this year we're putting $2 million. Again, that's the collection system we're kind of taking a break from. So if something does come up in the collection system, then that needs to be addressed. There is funding in the fund for that.
So Sarah, I have a question. So line item 1,000, I guess, is for the reclassifying the Browns Field. Is these funds, Nicole, for Plant 1, Plant 2, both?
It's Plant 2.
Plant 2.
Yes.
So how about Plant 1? Are we going to have any options for Brownsfields on Plant 1?
We did do an option, and it was the Inglewood School cleanup. I don't know if that was the actual title.
Plant 1 wasn't being
redone. So when you go for a loan, you start with design. So we started designing Plant 1 many moons ago, just the way that the process works. So when that happens, you are eligible for that funding then.
Okay.
And it did reduce the interest rate, again, not as low as Plant 2, but it reduced it significantly to make that funding available. We talked with Steve Donovan, and he agreed that it would not be beneficial to pay down those very low interest rate loans of 1%, and to put that in here for future projects.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
Thanks.
Great presentation. Excellent job to all of the staff that presented today. Thank you for all the work that's gone into this. It is 8:52, and no good decisions happen after 9. So we're going to adjourn this meeting until next week, same time, same place.
I just want to echo, really nice job to all the staff.
Agreed.
Went through everything with a fine-tuned comb, presented it really succinctly. Thank you very much.
Great job.
And thank you to Sarah. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Way to run a tight meeting.